computer's shut down again.
I think it was in the fire alarm here.
Oh.
We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. If you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please have a moment of silence. You may be seated. Welcome to tonight's meeting. If you have a cell phone or device otherwise, please silence it at this time. One device we will not silence is the device that's connecting Supervisor Ung. Supervisor Ung, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
From afar, so thank you for being here, just for the good of the public so that you know he is with us. And the first item tonight involves citizen concerns. Are there any concerned citizens who would like to approach the board? And if so, if you'd state your name and address and the nature of your concern.
Karen had one, but she's not here. There was something I thought we should all see with our leaders and their behavior.
We will move
So
on.
hopefully, when she comes down, can we go back to it?
Possibly
There she
toward,
is, right there,
toward the
citizens'
end.
concerns. Are we ready? We're ready. I just thought this should be brought to the public's attention. I hope it works.
Just to preface this may be poking fun at your board chair in a self-deprecating manner. I'm going to endure it.
Well, hey, you know, I just want to say that
This is something that,
it's one of those things where everybody's reading, you know what I mean? You're just not sure about bringing everybody together. I have to admit, I kind of just wanted to work in my office, but Allison told me I have to show up, and so, I'm really thankful you were right along with me today.
What?
It'll come back.
The last time I checked, you're the superintendent,
That's right.
so you're the one that could have stopped it.
That's right.
But no, you and your all-school convocations, you start the year off.
I'm really glad. Well, but you know, people love these events. There are all kinds of teachers and other staff members all over the district that have been working in the room, but while they've been there, they've been saying, I'm getting the itch. Staff give up.
Now, are these things that are all being deleted for a reason?
No, this is our
I
Being
need
s-
somebody to scratch that itch.
I'm sure that's why they got up this morning.
oh,
Exactly what they're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Look up here. Oh, somebody up here's got a little car trouble. Can't tell who that is. Oh,
Chewy?
that's Chewbacca. Oh,
And
of course they travel together. Well, let's pull over here and see if we can offer any assistance.
why does it do that?
Why is that funny?
hey,
Jeremy, Chewy. Hey, howdy.
well, we will try.
You guys got the same event we are. So, shall we, just go on over? You okay if you wait to get your... Oh, and smoke lower, kettle. Jeremy, have you had your You okay? I know you better. I know you don't do car on the driver then. As cold as it is in here, it threw me off a little bit, to be honest.
oh, there he goes. There he goes.
Jeremy gets in the car and says it's too cool.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'm able to hear you and Supervisor Clausen, but I'm not able to hear the audience mic.
Supervisor Ung, were you asking a question?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm able to hear you and Supervisor Clausen, but I'm not able to pick up much on the audience mic.
So what's being shown right now, and we will direct the rest of the audience to YouTube site, and I have to share my appreciation to Supervisor Smith, for pointing it out to everybody is kind of a self-deprecating poke in the energy specialist's eye over at the school district, and in a humorous way. So that's what you're hearing, Supervisor Ung, is that video that Supervisor Smith so graciously pointed everybody to. So with
I should have
that,
known. Thank you.
Should have known.
yeah. So with that, we will move to item number 4, which is approval of the agenda dated August 23rd, 2016.
Move it.
I will second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 5 is approval of the minutes of the August 16, 2016 meeting.
Move it.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 6 is discussion and approval of claims. I'll move them. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 7 is the presentation of a resolution thanking and commending Deputy Brad Rose for his exemplary service in Woodbury County. You may remember that a couple of weeks ago, Sheriff Dave Drew approached our board under citizen concerns. As you well know, law enforcement is at what I think is a very trying time in our country, and our community highly values great law enforcement officials and deputies. And I want to read, many of you know by Sheriff Dave Drew's commendation and a letter that was received to him, as well as a feature story on Siouxland News Matters. But I'd like for Deputy Rose to come up near the podium while I read this, and just know the service that he gave on this occasion. This is a resolution that all of us signed, Deputy Rose, and it says this: whereas Deputy Brad Rose recently delivered papers to individuals who were going through medical hardship and treated the couple in need with dignity and respect, and serving in a capacity that showed care. And whereas Deputy Rose sought to personally give resources, financial help, and affirmation of the couple's humanity during this hard time with understanding, so that they wrote a letter, and this story was featured on the local news. And whereas Deputy Rose has served the Sheriff's Office for 14 years with distinction in the Civil Division. And whereas this is but one action among many that reflect great credit upon local law enforcement as an effective purveyor of public trust, safety, and civic duty. And whereas Deputy Rose's actions are indicative of the commitment of Woodbury County to provide high-quality services to its citizens. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Woodbury County, Iowa, that the undersigned members of this board, and all of us sign this, thank and commend Deputy Brad Rose for his dedication to duty, and a reminder to us all of the way in which law enforcement touches lives on a daily basis. You did that in a very powerful and poignant way that I think I can speak on behalf of all of us as a county, moved us very deeply, and for that we thank you. If you come around, I'd like to present this to you. You give him a round of applause.
Now they're to the top of your bald head.
Right.
You're out of the way.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Deputy Rose.
Thank you, sir.
We also thank Deputy Rose to his service to this country as a member of the Air Guard as well. Item 8 is presentation of a resolution thanking and commending Bernard Kettleson for his years of service in Woodbury County. Sir, if you'd come forward, I'd like to read this, and I'm very appreciative of all that you've done over the many, many years that you've served. And this says this: whereas Bernard Kettleson has capably served Woodbury County as an employee of the Woodbury County Conservation Department for 44 years, from July 15th, 1972, August 31st, 2016. Whereas the service given by Bernard Kettleson as a Woodbury County employee has been characterized by his dedication to the best interests of the citizens of Woodbury County. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Woodbury County, Iowa, that the undersigned members of this board, and we all sign because we're so appreciative of what you've done in the Conservation Department, we thank and commend Bernard Kettleson for his years of service to Woodbury County, and be it further resolved that we all wish you the absolute best in this next season in your life, and thank you for your many years of dedication and service to this county. So thank you very much. Would you join me in a round of applause as well for this outstanding employee?
Appreciate it, Bernie.
For years, I thought Bernie was Little Sioux Park.
Thank you so much.
It'll never be the same.
No, it won't.
Just want to also take a moment while we're talking about our employees are outstanding. We have over 400 employees as a county, and we value each and every individual. We had a very small token of that today was our employee appreciation luncheon. And I want to thank those who were involved in helping to host that, including Karen and Heather and Dennis and anyone else who helped to pitch in. Dennis, I've heard the comments that you went to Sioux Rivers Region and they asked you what your new cologne was, hot dog for men, and that you changed afterwards, but we appreciate all your cooking.
They thought I turned into a hot dog, so I had to go home and take a quick shower before I came to work.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
And we have to thank Mikey. He was there all the way through it.
Yes. Item 9 is a couple of good news reports. The first one, I put an article in the backup on Girls Inc. celebrating its 30th year in Siouxland, and county staff who were featured. Heather Satterwhite was featured as Girls Inc. had a profound influence in her life, and I thought that was a good way, and encouraged department heads, if you have county staff that are featured in daily life or in media stories that are of a positive nature, to let us know, but I thought that reflected greatly upon our county. So thank you, Heather. Item B is a letter from the U.S. Department of Justice, the FBI, commending the response to the cybersecurity attack, and I thought that was a great way to highlight that there were several million files that could have been at risk, but IT's response, or WCICC, mitigated that so that there were only 3,700 that were encrypted, and through risk mitigation, we were able to determine without a shadow of a doubt that there was no exfiltration, and then in turn, their response to that, we received commendation from the FBI on the quick response. And so I think, as I've said before, an attack is never a good thing, but when you survive it and are stronger for it, learn lessons, and are shown that you have good defense, that's always a good thing. I'm so very appreciative of the folks there and our HR director who has a background in risk management and helped us through that process. Item C is live streaming of the Board of Supervisors meetings. You'll find a little icon or logo on the front of your agenda, and so you can now watch this live from the comfort of your own home. So if you can't get out, you can join the hundreds of thousands who like to watch the meetings. But we hope that that's an accessibility and a convenience, and something that will maybe come soon to a living room near you. Any thoughts, comments before we move on to item 10? Hearing none, item 10 is Human Resources, Director Ed Gilliland, and item A is the approval of the memorandum of personnel transactions.
Move it.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 10B is to authorize the chairman to sign the authorization to hire.
Move it.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item 11 is Board of Supervisors under me, but really it's a placeholder for the Sioux Rivers Region Future and Liaisons meeting with DHS. That meeting took place, and we expect a report back from Supervisors Munson and Ung as to the nature of the discussion, what was learned from that as you garnered information going forward. So I will defer to those gentlemen to share as much detail as possible.
We met with Jan Hikes, and I think I don't know that we found out anything new and revelating. We can withdraw from the region. The region can decide to dissolve, and that's the two major options. Jan Hikes did offer to set up a meeting with Matthew Ung, myself, and Shane Walters, which she would attend. And Matthew, we need to find a date to do that as soon as you're back.
Very well.
I would say, in addition to that, this may not be the right time to do it, but I'll do it anyway. We had a Sioux Rivers meeting today. It was an excellent meeting. The crisis center's doing very well. A lot of discussion about a sign, which I think is started at 10,000 and come in at 5. I think it's going to end up way under that. The Friendship House will not be built next to the crisis center. We had a very passionate presentation by the gal that runs the Friendship House and does not want to go to that location, and it was pretty much agreed upon that they've put together, or going to put together, the group to look at the needs in the other two counties, because they also either have a Friendship House or a walk-in facility. So that all went very well. The region decided not to go to mediation at this point. They also did agree to send, actually we had a lot of volunteers. There are 4 committees in Woodbury County: the Programs Committee, the Hospitalization Committee, the Criminal Justice Council, and the group called Homeless, but it has another name. The other 2 service coordinators volunteered. Shane is willing, and 1 other board member is willing to attend those meetings. They have not been attended by our service coordinator, and I think they're essential, but the board did agree to take that on. So that's where it is. We will meet with Jan and get back to you. No decisions.
Supervisor Ung, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. First, I'd say it's good news to hear that Sioux Rivers will now have some official representation of those committees. I know that's been a source of consternation, and those are very critical meetings I've been a part of several times. In regards to our meeting with DHS, I do think it was helpful to get us all on the same page. As a group, I'd say we kind of came to terms with some of the cultural differences, or just the reality of our county and smaller counties, for lack of a better word. It was basically explained that we, as a larger county, are scrupulously careful of following the 2080. Woodbury respects its greater accountability to the media, whereas we've noticed some of the region meetings have more informal and rely on what we've been told is the spirit of the 2080 rather than the letter of the agreement that we all signed, and relayed some of our frustrations that when our requests have been made to come into compliance, it's been viewed as obstructionist. So we are looking at the options, and at least we have the opening on the table, but Mr. Munson and I are certainly willing to attend or instigate any follow-up meetings as anyone on the region is willing to.
The other thing is, Mr. Butler presented is the region has a carryover of $5,772,883 and change. It's a lot of money for carryover.
Do you know what percentage that is? And that may not be fair, just springing that on you off the top of your head, and so I'm kind of trying to delay while you figure it out, but do you know?
If we take what has actually been spent through period 13, we're talking about 85% reserve.
85%?
Yeah, they spent about, 6 million, and when you got 5.775 million, that equates at least 85%. Now, the one statement they did say up there, and I think Mark will confirm this, is they will review and are going to review potential tax reduction in the region levy for next year. It was split up into 2 years at 665,000. That inevitably could potentially be increased. Is that kind of what you understood there, Mark?
Yep.
So
So
they are gonna review
statutorily, district health departments are at 20%.
22. Yeah, I just talked to, we're holding them at 22, and Kevin confirmed that. So, but
No, but they're an outlier. They're not the same as every other district health department.
No.
I think statutorily it's 20%. We're shooting for 22%.
yes,
And our initial outlay is 25. Most school districts, somewhere between 20 and 25. And I'm not saying this to do anything other than 85% is a large amount. I think they recognize that as well, and they're taking measures to.
and they do have some one-time expenses coming up, which will be a little spendy. It's going to be the Friendship House. I think they had set aside $1 million for that, so that'll eat into that a little bit. But I think there's a state code section where they are pretty much supposed to be down at 25%, so that's the goal, to work down to that one way or another.
I don't see the state clawing back this money because it is local tax dollars. It's not funding from the state or federal government. It's local tax dollars. The clawback usually came with state and federal.
Correct. And when we use reserves, we have to take some time to review that, because you don't want to have a drop of, say, 2 or 3 million one year, then come back and have to make up the reserves. So it's going to have to be a programmed reduction of reserves, which we have started that by a 2-year reduction. It could get bigger.
Well, it sounds like you're taking steps in the right direction then. And it sounds like it was a positive meeting, so I'm hoping that we're not going to have any more silly talk about breaking up the region or leaving the region or anything like that, because that would be a disaster in my opinion.
When we gave the balance out today, it did raise some eyebrows. There were people wondering, yeah, we do have quite a bit of money laying here.
Well, in the region's defense, they did try and give back double or reduce it by double last year to 600 and some thousand. But this board didn't want that big of a variation in the taxes. So that's got a lot to do with that carryover balance.
And I did hear that from the CEO, Shane Walters, that he thought the board understood as 1.2 million a year. That isn't the way I understood it. I understood as 1.2 million divided into 2 years. Now, I could be wrong, but that's what I thought.
633,000 times
Yes.
2.
Yes.
Actually, the reduction in tax askings did not affect that 5.7 whatsoever.
No, it did not.
I mean,
It-
that's
next
we're talking
year it will.
future years.
Yes, future years it will. And then we'll just have to kind of wait out. And I told them in the middle of September, our next region meeting, we will have an accrued balance, so we'll know exactly where we're at. Because there are some expenses, most of them are accrued, but we have some revenues coming in too, which could raise that a little bit. Not very much, because most of our money comes from tax dollars from the 3 counties.
Other questions or discussion? Supervisor Clausen?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there any thought been given to leaving the region?
To what?
To leaving the region?
I've not had a discussion about that.
Well, I thought
Didn't know
that's,
what the options were.
I think I think it would be fair to say there's been thought. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be,
Right.
a couple of the liaisons wouldn't be asking the question, what would
Right.
our options be? So I think it would be unfair to say nobody's thought about it, but they've asked what are our options, right?
Yeah, I can live with that, but the statement Jackie made is pretty accurate. It would be, to use Jackie's words, silly to think about leaving the region. This is something that was put together and it's got growing pains, but you just don't abandon it. And there's the people that receive the services are the people we have to be concerned about.
Absolutely.
And in a lot of these discussions, they've never been mentioned. And leaving the region, I think we would really be doing a disservice to that population.
Well, getting somebody to go to these 4 meetings is a big step forward. We need to be concerned with more than just those people providing the service. We need to be looking at the overall county function, and these 4 groups definitely are involved in the workings of everything that's going on. To not have somebody there, I think, was absolutely wrong.
But that's not going to be the case anymore.
That will not be the case anymore.
So that's movement, so.
Yes, it is.
So I think the
Patty Erickson Buttman.
so I think what I'm,
She's a region employee, and I don't want to go down that road again, but, I
Appointed
don't
by
think
the
now's
board.
the time to backslide into throwing stones at people. I mean, it sounds like a positive meeting, we're moving forward, and I think if we can keep the banter positive on our end, and this is the most positive I've heard any report in months. So I feel much better than I have for a long, long time about you representing us on this board.
unless there's further discussion, I would like to move on that positive note. We will. So we'll go on to thank you for the report. We'll go on to item 12, Building Services, Kenny Schmitz, Woodbury County Buildings, and tried to clearly delineate on the, what exactly this was, but the agenda item is named as options to complete upgrades partially for several buildings or fully for 2 buildings, dedicating CIP dollars for HVAC systems. Kenny?
Yeah, these guys tried to get me on that lift again this morning in the rain.
I did, and I'll address that in the next citizen.
I denied that ride.
The item before you is to upgrade our current HVAC systems, and I shouldn't just say upgrade, I should say repair and upgrade. We've got many systems throughout the county buildings that are not operating correctly or have possibly never been hooked up. Whatever the situation may be, they vary at different buildings. We really have 2 options if we'd like to move forward and make some repairs and upgrades. Our first option is to replace all the logic panels at each building. And what I've done is given you some backup sheets in last week's meeting to show you what that really is. And what that really is you get on a user computer, main HVAC computer, and you can look in option number 1 at all of your buildings. Now, you can't control those buildings, but at least you can look at them. It doesn't give you any user control at that point. You can just view the building and the main systems there. In other words, the chiller or the boiler. Option 2, what it would do is it would allow you to interface with the county courthouse and the law enforcement center buildings, just those 2 buildings. You could interface with it, and it would replace all the controls throughout in both buildings. So you would have full control and full access of everything in those 2 buildings.
From the comfort of your chair at home.
Yes. That could be hooked up, yes. And it could very well be a part of that system. would alleviate some problems. It would definitely address some problems. I'm requesting that the board consider approving action on option number 2. I think that if we got full functionality and at least 2 of our largest buildings, it would be a great step forward. And possibly at some other point in further out CIP years, we could address and initiate the other buildings. Why am I not proposing doing all of them now? We don't have enough dollars allocated in the CIP in 2017 to do that. Now, if we were to do option 2, if we were to approve that, we would have to, and Dennis, you correct me if I'm wrong, but we would have to reallocate some of the HVAC funds we have identified. For instance, let's say Siouxland District Health and Dorothy Pico and Triview and Trosperhoit, we would have to pull those CIP dollars into this LEC and courthouse.
Dennis, the process for doing that is through a budget amendment or not, because we're at the same dollar amount?
Actually, we're at the same dollar amount. It'll be around $850-some thousand. Combining them all together, you can do that through board action because we have the total budget approved. It's just consolidating, shifting the money around. And
No tax impact one way or another.
Like Kenny says, the Trosperhoit's going to cost probably quite a bit, and your other buildings cost a little bit. Then there's always that fear of the 1.2 million. These all be bid out as separate projects, so we won't have that problem. You know, like every year. So these will all be separate projects, I understand, and it'll be bid out. So we will not have the 1.2 million problem, and it's probably a good idea.
I like the choice of the 2 buildings because I've heard many times that the jail is a spa over there most of the winter, as is 7th floor, some of the other floors, and so
Right, and the thing there is, you know, we could view all the buildings in option number 1, but what good does viewing a building do if you can't control it, or if you can't improve the creature comforts, or realize any energy savings? Another item with option number 2 is we have the possibility of possibly getting some energy savings or rebates back from Mid-American. That has definitely not been solidified yet, but I do know that under option number 1, there would not be any available.
Have you discussed the process by which you'd realize those energy efficiencies through Mid-American with one of their engineering groups, or having to study? Because that's not a simple thing, right?
It's not. I've touched base with it. It would have to come through one of Mid-American Energy's partners that they work with to take a look at your project and to see basically what you're doing, review your building, and see how they might apply their rebates to your project.
My understanding, and I've got a limited understanding, but it's a fairly complex process because they've got to be able to take snapshots before and after. So now, because you don't have the building automation system, you're blowing past and you're heating the space to 79, 80 degrees, even though it's wintertime. After, you're heating it to something reasonably. So it seems like there's some complexity, but I agree. I think option number 2 makes sense because otherwise you don't realize any of those efficiencies. So,
Right.
other thoughts, questions?
If you get, if we do with option 2, that will be next year, right?
It could be started, it could be probably started this year.
Okay. And then option 1, is that about the same price?
Both options are about the same price, yes. So cost between options really isn't a factor.
So you'd probably be looking at option 1 in 18, 19?
Possibly.
Or is that too soon?
I don't think that's too soon.
But when you say that, you mean option 1 minus the 2 buildings that
Yes.
would be taken care of by option 2, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Dennis?
Yeah, we do have the money budgeted for this fiscal year, so I'd recommend that we do it this fiscal year and get it done. Because we got till June 30th to get it done, because the money is here this year. So doing all the other buildings fall in 17, 18.
Right.
Do you have any idea on timeline, how long? We have no idea.
You gotta
I
bid
mean, let's
this
say
out.
you start tomorrow.
I really don't, but I'm just going to guess off the top of my head and try to estimate maybe 6 months.
Okay.
You have to bid this out.
Yes.
You have to bid this out even though the current system falls within a certain proprietary brand. I don't know how that works.
Yes.
Okay.
The catch point or the hinge point on that is due to the dollar amount, we're required to send it out for bids. But we have what's considered a proprietary system. In other words, it's made by a certain company. It's called Allerton. And we have to interface with that system. There are only certain distributors that are allowed to sell the products that interface with the Allerton system. So there'll basically be let's say it's a Jeremy Taylor that sits in Sioux City, Iowa, and a Mark Monson that sits in Omaha, Nebraska. They are both the same distributor of the same product, but they will be bidding on the same package.
Oh, okay. The installer is different?
It's basically one and the same.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? Well, with that, I would move to complete fully the 2 buildings, dedicating CIP dollars for the HVAC systems at the LEC and courthouse.
Second.
Second.
He got it.
Thank you.
Supervisor Young seconds. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Dennis?
Still doing this, I can go ahead and consolidate because you just threw everything together with the 2 buildings, so I will consolidate them on our reports.
You need no further board action. Thank you. Item 13, secondary roads, our county engineer, Mark Nara. Item A is consideration of a resolution to revise the Woodbury County FY 2017 5-year road construction program.
We have 2 projects that have come up following the approval of the program back in April. One of those is with the bond being levied for paying for the Dogwood Trail project in cooperation with Sergeant Bluff. Working with the budget analyst, we're going to be paying that through the secondary road department, and we need to amend that into our construction program to allow that payment to be made. The bond it'll be basically a pass-through for us. And then the other is to add bridge J9 on 170th Street. This is one of the bridges that was damaged during flooding on June 17th. Bring it into the program so we can hopefully get it replaced yet this year. It would probably be a spring, summer 2017 project. The other bridge that was damaged and in need of repair was B64. It was already in the program for replacement, so we did not have to add that one. Then Haskell Avenue, that's the one we need to talk about permanent closure on, north of Mobile. But I recommend approval of the resolution.
Move it.
I'll second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. Item B is consideration of approval of lab fees for Iowa DOT for project STP SCO 97110-5E-97.
Move it.
Thank you.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. C, consideration of certificate of completion of contract work for the secondary road department.
This is for the replacement of the Grundy Avenue culvert. This will be southwest of Climbing Hill. The project was done by Graves Construction for $341,966.
Move it.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no.
That was one of the projects the mayor was referring to last night, so it was done with our special bridge fund levy.
Very good, and the motion carries 5-0. Dennis?
When these projects like this, where he's taking a more conservative approach to doing this, they'll serve the purpose. Will this add more bridges to the 5-year program possibly?
Where we put the culvert in there,
Yes.
that one was about the same cost as a bridge would have been in that
Okay.
location.
I thought they were
The
running.
large, it was a big twin box culvert, a twin 12 by 10. Those offer less impediment to the farmers on the road because there's no handrail or any superstructure that's visible above the road. But they are fairly costly. The amount of structural concrete in one is almost the same as a bridge. Right now, with the way project costs and estimates are running, we're probably going to run out of money in the 6.5 million before we run out of projects. But we will still get those projects finished. We now have the dime coming along and helping us with that. Right now, I'm projecting that of the 14 bridges we set as that goal, we'll get 12 of them done, plus the 250th Street project, and the remaining 2 we'll have to utilize our local funding for.
Very good. The last item then is D, consideration of approval of contract and bond for project LBL 212-73-97.
Move it.
Second.
Motion and a second. Did you have something you wanted to?
This one's a locally funded project, entirely secondary road funds.
And today was a normal day in secondary roads. Pulled 2 of your divisions off because of high winds, rain, lightning, and thunder. Went through Salix again. Climbing Hill,
Heavily.
141, lots of trees down.
I haven't heard reports from whether that storm lost some of its strength as it got further east. I haven't had any reports of trees down once we got much to the east of Climbing Hill so far. So.
I've got something I'd like to talk about that's a little bit off topic, but it's tangentially related, if that's a word. So, Mark, while we have you here, when there is a storm like this, I just wanted to make sure it was clear to the board, as it became clear to me, how we deploy assets out in the county, especially within incorporated areas. And so one of the things that happened the other day was I got a call, and that call was a complaint that the EOC or 911 operator had been contacted, essentially.
County dispatch.
Right, and that they had asked for a maintainer to come through downtown. This was Danbury, as I remember.
Yes, it was.
And that the answer back was, you'll have to get in touch with the County Board of Supervisors. And the individual was concerned that this was during an emergency. And so, why is that not a good response? And so in fielding this, Michelle Scaff with Emergency Management and our county engineer, Mark Nara, were very helpful in taking this call with me. We swapped in the call and responded. And so I'm going to try to rehearse what our standard operating procedure is in this. It takes the mayor, an official request declared by the mayor, because the community may ultimately be charged back from the county, as well as the chair of this board at the same time authorizing that asset. Doesn't take the whole Board of Supervisors, because in an emergency situation that wouldn't be convenable to have a meeting.
We have pre-existing agreements that allow the chair that authority.
And so in that, we just we're making sure that everyone's on the same page as far as that goes, and emergency management's reaching out to those communities in order to make sure that they understand the process as well, and fill in anything that I miss. And I just thought it'd be good because I learned something new. You may all know this, or it may be forgotten along the way, and I just thought it'd be good to bring up.
In this case, the request came from the Danbury Volunteer Fire Department Chief. He really doesn't have the authority to expend City of Danbury funds. And In this case, if we don't end up with a declared disaster where there is FEMA aid, that time spent in town would be billed back to the city. The city request in this case also would have had to take second because we were out opening our own roads for our constituents at the same time. Doug would have had to have pulled staff off of opening county roads to assist the city. So at best, their request would have, in this case, come second under the circumstances that we had going that day. Again, I think it's important that we take care of our constituents who are paying and contributing to the secondary road department first, and then we request or we assist those cities as needed. If there's danger of loss of life, of course, we would go into the city and disrupt. We'd worry about the cash later. But in this case, it was not a problem that was immediate risk of life or limb within the community. That we would head in with immediate responses, as quickly as we could get staff there.
What this was, it was the community that, didn't have their ducks in a row. The fire
Yes.
chief did not realize or did not know that the mayor had to make that request.
Correct, yeah. And it was probably 5 years ago that training was given to the fire chiefs so that they learned this, but those people turn over in time. And it may be appropriate once our new emergency manager gets on board to have some of that training so we open up that communication again.
But I just wanted to make sure the response back to let those folks know, here's what they now need to do, so it doesn't seem like that's the final response. So it was good learning for me. And so just wanted to share that. Now, we are actually on an item, so I apologize.
She can't help herself.
Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle.
Sorry,
Thank
I'm
you.
going to put on the emergency
Sure,
management
thank
hat.
you.
I just wanted to add that if a local community's resources are exhausted and they need assistance, and if our county engineer's office is also handling the same emergency, if the mayor and the board determine that an emergency should be declared, then we can get resources from other areas as well. There's a point where we may be able to deploy DOT resources, and we can have the state as a resource to bring other things into the community to help them so that they don't just feel helpless.
We also have cross-county line agreements.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We came to Mapleton and Monona County's assistance when they had the tornado go through Mapleton in, 2011, 2012, somewhere in there.
Okay.
All we did was barricade roads up in Woodbury County, as it turned out, but we assisted them in closing off access to the community to prevent onlookers and such from plugging up the response.
Okay. Well, thank you both very much for your responsiveness and your help in explaining that. Now, I got so far afield, I don't even know if we've had a motion and a second on this item. I apologize.
Which item are you on?
We are on 13D.
13D is complete. Well, you haven't voted on it.
So we do have a motion and a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the item that we're actually on? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. We'll now recess the Board of Supervisors meeting and convene the Bennett McDonald Smithland Drainage District Trustees meeting. Item 14 is approval of the minutes of the August 16, 2016 meeting.
Move on the minutes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no, and the motion carries 5-0. We'll now adjourn the Bennett McDonald Smithland Drainage District Trustees meeting. Continue with the Board of Supervisors meeting. Item 15 is the chairman's report. Item A, department head meeting agenda for August 22nd, 2016 that has gone out to everybody. We had a good, brief meeting, held to about 1 hour, and just covered some topics, including responses when there's good news or hard news, educating the public. I used an example of a story that was on the front page of the paper regarding the mowing of crops that impeded the site and how that might help for others to know that and to assist in using media channels sometimes as an educative way. I also talked about meeting with liaisons. Our department heads came up with goals for strategically moving their department ahead back in late March. And so asked that they would reach out to their liaisons, have a meeting just to see how they're doing with those, what the board can do to support along the way. So you may be hearing from department heads requesting a meeting. And so if you're able to help do that, that may be a good conversation point to bring back just to kind of gauge where everyone's at. And talked about upcoming rural meetings, and then just went around the room and heard from all department heads. Karen is assembling the minutes as we speak, and we'll have those out to you sometime within the next week. So any questions there? Item B, economic development engagement with Dogwood Trail, Sergeant Bluff TIF. This is an item that I brought to you on the previous chairman's report, and one in which Supervisor Clausen was asking a good question, which is if a city is to offer incentives on their own behalf within an area like this, when we have a joint city-county TIF set up, how does the county ultimately get paid back? And so we came to what I think are some very reasonable agreements. Now, having said this, obviously any amendment to this, and they were very clear on this, would have to come back before this board as well as our council. But I think these are things that would generally be agreed upon. One is that there should be, and Dennis, you can weigh in on any of this, there should be tax rebate instead of abatement, and as well as making sure that they pay the interest, not just until CF revenue comes online, but throughout the duration of that bond from which they've borrowed for their portion. And they were understanding of that as well. Made it clear that I believe that it's would be the position of the county that they ought not to be able to offer incentives on behalf of the county.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. They can offer their own city incentives, but we need to be careful as we kind of mold through this first one out of the gate that we don't have cities obligating the county for things. Now, they did bring up what happens when you have the huge economic development dream project. You know, is the county unwilling to offer anything? Well, the response was, let's not set it at a threshold amount, but if they could always come to us and say, here's what we have, and what would the county be willing to do, rather than having us set some sort of agreement out. So I think that that's reasonable as well. And that was pretty much, we did discuss that they could offer their own incentives, as long as they were paying the interest regularly on their behalf. So I think all told, and David Gleiser mentioned this last night, walking through this process slowly I think has been helpful, because I think it's allowing us to see in this one project what's happening in a way that's helping us to craft it the right way. So Dennis, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think you had it all there. They were very agreeable, and both parties were acceptable to everything. Now it's time to bring it back, have our attorney put the agreement together with the amendments and come back to both the board and the council.
And that'll be Jostin was our
Yes,
bonding counsel.
Bob Jostin.
Okay. Any questions there? C, IT and climbing hill integration. John Malay's been working with Gary Brown. It seems like it's going well over the next couple of weeks in order to, within his budget, bring emergency services under the same network as we've gone through that cybersecurity attack, in order to make sure that we're all in the same network. Gary has been doing yeoman's work as far as keeping 2 sets of calendars so that we can all be on the same page, and I appreciate that. Questions there? D, chairman's reports. I probably overloaded the paper on this, but trying very hard to make sure that you're getting as much information as possible. There are some times where I'm having to almost add to it on the day of, but trying to give as much information and just kind of rolling up chairman's reports as we go along in order to give as much information as it possibly can on what's happening, including things like engaging in economic development and otherwise. Item E, Board Administration and Mail Service. Building Services previously has had mail. Under day-to-day operations, I'm asking that it be our Board Administration office. They had it in the past. I don't believe it takes a boiler's license in order to be able to do this job. And last I checked, Building Services has a lot of things going on in a lot of different places. And so my intent would be that Heather Satterwhite would run point on this and that Karen James would be secondary as far as the collection of mail. With that, there will also be, and Dennis, you can help me here within the mail budget as far as those folks running back and forth in the afternoon. And I've never wanted to get into the P word as long as I've been here, parking. But there will be, I think it's appropriate to have a spot that is compensated by the county in order to be able to complete that function. Do you want to explain?
And the way it's going to work out, we'll pay it out of the mail budget as a parking line item. The person who'll park in that parking spot will be the person that's going to deliver the mail. Most of the time it will be, I believe, Karen.
Heather?
Heather, I mean, if Heather is on vacation, Karen will park in that spot that day to deliver the mail, or whoever is going to deliver the mail will be parking that spot. Otherwise, Heather will be parking there because she'll be delivering the mail every day.
So that spot does not belong to a person, it belongs
Correct.
to a function. Does that make sense?
Correct.
So if you were going to do it, and I'm not suggesting that, that's where you would park.
Correct.
So it's by position of going and collecting that and leaving each day in the afternoon.
Yeah, whoever's doing the mail would use that spot that day. And we know ahead of time, you know, Heather's not going
That
to be
spot is,
interchangeable. He'll
Oh.
be in Sioux Car Park, or whatever they call it now.
you can get a key for those parking meters.
But those keys, you have to pay the money to put them on. And that's another option. I mean, we could look at that. I just think that if we're going to require that person to be doing that function, that should be part of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
It
then,
makes more sense for it makes more sense for the spot to follow the function rather than to pass a key around, if that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, true.
all right, and then item F, presentation at WIT by Woodbury County and the City of Sioux City. So I was invited, and Mayor Bob Scott. It was basically just their faculty. I understand that WIT's 50th anniversary, there will be a larger function, most likely both our Board of Supervisors as well as the City Council will be invited to. This was just their staff development kickoff, presented the resolution. Dan Moore and Bob Padmore on behalf of the city presented theirs. And I thought it was a good way of doing it, talking about strategic partnerships and Western Iowa Tech, the city and the county. Obviously, have a very strong partnership, as evidenced most recently by our economic development venture with the Ag Expo Center, as well as a host of other things, including the Security Institute and EOC and so on. So I thought that was good. That exhausts item 15, unless there's any questions or discussion. Item 16, report on committee meetings.
I missed a couple out of Sioux Rivers. Shane is asking that the board approve a program called Stepping Up Initiative. And it's a national initiative to reduce the number of people with mental illness in jails. I think it's a great idea. It came out of NACO, except I don't think all the sheriffs knew about it. So I asked that they maybe meet with the sheriffs before they pass a resolution approving this. And so they're going to meet with the sheriffs and visit about what it means. The other thing is, after months, if not years, of discussion, Sioux Rivers will be putting together a contract for a social worker to work in the 3 counties, primarily Woodbury County. Huge step forward. It could make a big difference, and it's on its way. I miss anything major?
Very good. Other reports on committee meetings? Item 17, citizen concerns. Kenny.
Kenny Schmidt's Building Services. I did try to get Mark Monson into the 60-foot high lift today,
While it was lightning and raining.
previous to the lightning and the rain. He was still unwilling to do so. We were checking the terracotta around the exterior of the building today extensively. I took all morning to go around all four sides and take a look at it and get an eye on what the real condition of it is. With that said, it is not in good condition. And I will bring some pictures back to the board next week and let you take a look at those. I have one area where I can actually, you can see a picture where I've actually stuck my hand up in between the terracotta where it's supposed to have cement, and there's nothing there.
Then he had a piece in his hand, and he said, you see that hole up there? This came out of that. It just fell out. So we've got issues.
And so, yes, we have some issues. I'll bring back some more information at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank
Well,
you.
be careful, Kenny.
Dennis?
You know, I always look out my back window once in a while, and all I see is a brick wall, and here are two guys on a lift going up. So it did kind of thrill me to see something more than just a blank wall.
All right. Any other citizen concerns?
Need to get out more.
Rick?
Rick Snyder, Conservation Director. The fellow you just recently gave a resolution to for his 44 years, we're having a retirement reception this Sunday over at Little Sioux Park in his honor from 1 to 4. So if any of you can make it, we'd sure like to see you over there. He's got a storied career.
I can't vision that without him.
Yeah, he is Mr. Little Sioux Park, that's for sure. Yeah. Hasn't always been there. He spent a couple years at Browns Lake there early when I started, but yeah, everybody knows him, it seems like. So be a big loss. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rick. Item 18, board concerns and comments. How is where you're at, Mr. Young?
Very good. Been packing a lot into the days.
Can you say that again? You kind of broke up.
It's been going very well. Been packing a lot into the days.
Don't ask a third time.
Well, it sounds great. Well, given that we are just touched, Auditor Gill.
I just wanted to report, came back today, and I've been following the emails, and one of the things that we're going through at this point, we're trying to get precinct election officials lined up for the upcoming general election in November. And this is something that I've talked to you a little bit about briefly, but what the concerns are coming true is that we've exhausted our list as we're required to do by laws to work with the party chairs first, and we're still very short of the folks that we need for precinct election officials. So in order to try to, I met previously with those chair people. We went through and tried to do it the way that we normally did it. But at that meeting, we suggested some things, and I'm going to bring that proposal forward to you. And it's going to be one of the things that I'll be doing is trying to go to shifts. Because that's what folks have asked for, because it's just a very long day for those folks, and they turn us down because they just say it's getting too long.
What is the day normally?
The
without break?
polls are open from 7 to 9, so they have to be there at 6 in the morning, and then have to be there till almost 10 o'clock at night.
And why aren't you getting people?
It is going to, the proposal will cost us a little bit more money, but one of the things I'm going to offer is that we do splits, but in order to, because it's better to keep them there all day long, is that we will also have a proposal to do time and a half after 8 hours in order to give some incentive for those people to stay there that period of time. And also there will be a raise in pay. So I'm going to bring that to you and tell you you know, how much it's going to cost, but we're to the point that we need to do something in order to get those folks, because every year, every general election is very difficult to find folks to serve.
Sure.
I'll be bringing that to you. And also, along that line is to honor maybe our longest-serving precinct election officials. So we'll do that.
How do you get people without the parties involved?
We can, I can go out and make presentations to groups and that type of thing. There are a lot of things that, in fact, that was part of the training that I was at last week, Mr. Clausen.
Very
How
good.
to recruit precinct election officials, but the Iowa law actually prescribes the way that you're supposed to do it, and you're supposed to get that list from the party chairs.
Yeah, because it has to be Democrat and Republican
Right.
as far as I know.
You try to match them up in a partisan manner, and they even actually tell us the priority that they want those folks called. But we have called through the list, and we're vastly short of the number of folks that we need. So once you've done that, and I've talked to the chairs about that, and they've said they're okay with it, is that we actually start going out and trying to recruit them ourselves.
Very good. Thank you very much. Other board concerns and comments?
Thank you, PAC-L, for not hanging up on me.
Matthew, are you getting emails over there?
Yes,
I will try to set up that date with Jan through emails.
sounds good.
All right. Well, with that, at an hour and 5 minutes, Mr. Clausen, we will
bad.
adjourn. Thank you.
Leave it to Mrs.